The snow fell in thick, silent sheets over Boston on Christmas Eve, each flake catching the amber glow of street lamps like tiny fallen stars. Marcus Thompson gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles white against the cold leather as he navigated the icy streets toward home. In the back seat, his 7-year-old daughter Emma hummed Jingle Bells, slightly off-key, her breath fogging the window as she pressed her nose against the glass. Watching the decorated houses blur past in a kaleidoscope of red and green lights, Marcus glanced at her through the rear view mirror and felt his chest tighten with the familiar ache that had become his constant companion over the past 2 years. Christmas used to mean something different. It used to mean Sarah's laughter filling their kitchen as she baked cookies at midnight, flour dusting her nose. It used to mean a house full of warmth and the kind of love that made everything else fade into insignificance. Now it meant getting through another day, putting on a brave face for Emma, and pretending that the hole in their lives wasn't growing wider with each passing holiday. He had tried. God knows he had tried. The small apartment was decorated with lights he'd strung up while balancing precariously on a stepladder, cursing under his breath when the tangled mess refused to cooperate. There were presents under the tree, carefully wrapped in paper covered with snowmen and reindeer, each one researched and selected with the kind of desperation only a single father trying to fill an impossible void could understand. But no matter how hard he worked, no matter how many extra shifts he pulled at the hospital where he worked as a nurse, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was failing her. Failing them both. Daddy, look. Emma's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. That little girl is going through the trash. Marcus slowed the car, following Emma's pointing finger to a narrow alley between a closed pawn shop and a boarded-up restaurant. At first, he thought Emma must be mistaken. The visibility was poor, the snow creating a veil between them and whatever she'd seen. But then he saw her too. A small figure, no more than 8 or 9 years old, bundled in a coat that was several sizes too large and worn so thin he could see the pink fabric of what looked like pajamas underneath. She was bent over a dumpster, standing on her tiptoes to reach inside, her small hands moving frantically through the contents. Something shifted in Marcus's chest. The rational part of his brain, the part that had been shaped by years of emergency room rotations and seeing the worst of humanity, told him to keep driving. It told him that getting involved meant complications, potential danger, and problems he couldn't afford to take on. But there was another voice, quieter but more insistent. That sounded remarkably like Sarah's. It was the voice that had made him fall in love with her in the first place. The one that had always seen past the surface to the humanity underneath. Daddy, we have to help her. Emma's voice was small but determined, carrying that particular tone that reminded him so much of her mother. It hurt. Marcus pulled the car to the curb, the tires crunching through fresh snow. Stay here, baby. Lock the doors. I'll be right back. He stepped out into the biting cold, feeling the wind cut through his jacket like a knife. The girl hadn't noticed him yet. She was too focused on her task, pulling out cardboard boxes and examining them carefully before setting them aside. As he got closer, Marcus could see her hands were red and chapped from the cold, her fingers moving with the kind of efficiency that spoke of practice. This wasn't her first time doing this. Hey there, Marcus called out softly, not wanting to startle her. It's pretty cold to be out here alone. The girl spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance. Her eyes were wide with fear, dark brown and enormous in her thin face. She looked ready to run, her body coiled like a spring, and Marcus immediately took a step back, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. It's okay, he said quickly. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm a nurse. My name is Marcus. That's my daughter Emma in the car. He gestured toward where Emma had pressed her face against the window, waving enthusiastically despite his instructions to stay put. We just want to make sure you're all right. The girl's eyes darted between Marcus and the car, calculating. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, but there was something ancient in her gaze, a weariness that no child should carry. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and a purple knit hat sat askew on her head, clearly handmade with several dropped stitches visible even in the dim light. I'm fine, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm just looking for boxers. Marcus took another careful step closer. Now he could see that she'd assembled a small pile of cardboard pieces beside the dumpster, sorted by size. What do you need boxes for, sweetheart? The girl's chin lifted with a flash of pride. I'm making presents for my mama and my little brother. Mama's been sad because we can't afford a real Christmas this year. And Marcus, he's only 4, and he doesn't understand why Santa might not come. So I'm making them presents. I'm going to wrap the boxes up real pretty and put them under our tree. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of the presents sitting in his car, the expensive doll Emma had begged for, the books and games and clothes, all bought with money he'd earned but taken for granted. This child was digging through trash to create the illusion of Christmas morning for her family, wrapping empty boxes because she had nothing else to give. What's your name? Marcus asked, his voice rough with emotion he was struggling to contain. Jasmine. She clutched a particularly sturdy box to her chest. I should go. Mama doesn't know I left. She fell asleep, and I snuck out. I wanted to surprise her. Asterisk Jasmine. Wait. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. Let me give you some money. You can buy real presents, asterisk, but Jasmine was already shaking her head, backing away. Mama says we don't take charity. She says we're just going through a hard time, but we have our dignity. She'd be real mad if she knew I was talking to a stranger. Asterisk, it's not charity. Marcus said desperately. It's Christmas. It's just people helping people. Asterisk, that's what charity is. Jasmine said with the kind of wisdom that broke his heart. Thank you, mister, but I got what I need. You have a Merry Christmas with your little girl. Asterisk, she gathered her boxers and turned to leave, but Marcus couldn't let her disappear into the night. Not like this. Not when he had the power to change something, to make even a small dent in the suffering that seemed to permeate every corner of the world. Asterisk Jasmine, please, at least let me give you a ride home. It's not safe for you to be out here alone, and it's freezing. Your mama would want you to be safe, right? Asterisk Jasmine hesitated, and in that moment of indecision, Emma made the decision for everyone. The car door opened and she came running through the snow, her pink boots kicking up white powder with each step. Asterisk Emma. Marcus called out, but she was already standing in front of Jasmine, looking at her with the uncomplicated compassion that only children possess. Asterisk hi, I'm Emma. Are you really making presents out of boxes? That's so smart. I never would have thought of that. She reached out and touched one of the boxers Jasmine held. Do you want to come to our house? We have hot chocolate, and my daddy makes it really good with marshmallows and everything. And we have so many decorations. You could help us finish decorating our tree if you want. Asterisk Marcus watched as something in Jasmine's face softened. The defensive walls she'd built began to crack. And for the first time, she looked like what she was. A scared, cold little girl trying to hold her world together with cardboard and determination. Asterisk, I can't, Jasmine said, but her voice wavered. I need to get home. Asterisk then, let us drive you. Emma insisted, taking Jasmine's free hand. Please, it's Christmas Eve. Nobody should be alone on Christmas Eve. Asterisk, and perhaps it was Emma's innocent insistence. Or perhaps it was the cold that had seeped into her bones. Or perhaps it was simply that Jasmine was tired of being strong. But she nodded. Marcus gathered up the rest of her boxers and led both girls to the car, getting them settled in the back seat where the heat blasted warm and welcoming. Where do you live, sweetheart? Marcus asked, adjusting the rearview mirror to see Jasmine's reflection. Asterisk, the Riverside Apartments. Building C, it's about 10 minutes from here. Jasmine's teeth were chattering now that she was out of the cold, her body finally registering just how frozen she'd been. Asterisk Marcus knew the Riverside Apartments. It was one of the rougher complexes in the area, the kind of place where broken elevators stayed broken for months and the heat worked sporadically at best. He pulled back onto the road, listening as Emma chatted away to Jasmine, asking questions about her brother and her favorite color and whether she liked the snow. Asterisk as they drove. Jasmine began to open up. She told them about Marcus, her little brother, who believed with absolute certainty that Santa was real and would bring him the toy truck he'd asked for. She talked about her mother, who worked 2 jobs but still couldn't quite make ends meet after their father had left 6 months ago. She explained how they'd had to move from their nice house to the apartments. How her mom cried at night when she thought the kids were asleep. How Jasmine had stopped asking for things because she knew it made her mother's face crumple with guilt. Mama tries so hard, Jasmine said softly. She's always tired, but she still reads to us every night and makes us laugh. She says as long as we have each other, we have everything that matters. But I know she's sad. I know she wants to give us more. That's why I thought if I could just make it look like Christmas, maybe she wouldn't feel so bad. Asterisk Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. He thought about all the times he'd felt sorry for himself over the past 2 years. All the moments he'd focused on what he'd lost, rather than what he still had. Emma was healthy. They had a home. They had food and warmth and security. He'd been so consumed by grief that he'd forgotten to see the blessings right in front of him. Asterisk when they pulled up to the Riverside Apartments. Marcus turned to face Jasmine. An idea had been forming in his mind, growing stronger with each passing minute. It was crazy and impulsive and exactly the kind of thing Sarah would have done without a second thought. Asterisk, Jasmine, I want you to listen to me very carefully. He said, I'm going to give you my phone number. I want you to go inside and check on your mom and your brother. If everything is okay, if it's safe, I want you to call me. Can you do that? Asterisk Jasmine looked confused, but nodded, committing the number to memory as Marcus recited it twice. She clutched her boxers and climbed out of the car, then paused. Asterisk thank you for the ride, Mr. Marcus, and thank you Emma, you're really nice. I hope you have a good Christmas. You too, Emma said, waving as Jasmine disappeared into the building. Daddy, what are we doing? Emma asked as Marcus kept the car running. Watching the building, asterisk something your mother would have wanted us to do. Marcus said, something we should have been doing all along. Asterisk 10 minutes later, Marcus's phone rang. Jasmine's voice was small and uncertain. Mr. Marcus, my mama is sleeping. She has to work a double shift tomorrow, on Christmas Day, at the hospital. Marcus is watching TV. The apartment is safe. Why did you want me to call? Asterisk, because I need your address. Marcus said, the exact apartment number. And Jasmine, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Asterisk, there was a long pause. Then, apartment C412. Asterisk, thank you, sweetheart. Now, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go to bed. I know it's early, but can you try to sleep? And don't look under the tree or by the door until morning. Can you promise me that? Asterisk, I don't understand. Asterisk, you will. Merry Christmas, Jasmine. Asterisk, Marcus ended the call and turned to Emma. Baby, how would you feel about giving away some of your presents? Asterisk, Emma didn't hesitate. Which ones? Asterisk, and there it was. The moment Marcus realized that despite all his fears about failing as a father, he'd somehow managed to raise a daughter with a heart as big as her mother's had been. They drove to the 24-hour Walmart, and Emma ran through the aisles picking out toys for a 4-year-old boy she'd never met. Marcus added groceries to the cart, staples that would stretch for weeks, and gift cards that could be used without the burden of obligation. Asterisk, they bought wrapping paper and tape, and they sat in the car in the parking lot, transforming their purchases into proper Christmas presents. Marcus wrapped, while Emma wrote tags in her careful, looping handwriting. For Marcus, with love, for Jasmine's mom, for Jasmine, because you're the best big sister. Asterisk, by the time they finished, the car was loaded with bags and boxers. They drove back to the Riverside apartments, and Marcus carried everything up for flights of stairs, because the elevator was indeed broken. Emma insisted on helping, taking the smaller bags and climbing determinedly beside him. Asterisk, they left everything outside apartment C, arranged carefully so it would be the first thing anyone saw when they opened the door. Marcus took out a piece of paper and wrote a note. Sometimes miracles happen. Sometimes people care. You are not alone. Merry Christmas. He didn't sign it. Asterisk, as they walked back down the stairs, Emma slipped her hand into his. Mama would be proud of us, wouldn't she, Daddy? Asterisk, Marcus stopped, kneeling down to look his daughter in the eye. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the stairwell, on Christmas Eve, in a building that smelled of old cooking and hard lives, he finally understood something Sarah had tried to tell him before she died. It's not about how much time we have. It's about what we do with it. It's about spreading light in the darkness, even when we're hurting, especially when we're hurting. Asterisk. Yeah, baby, he said, pulling Emma into a tight embrace. She would be so proud of you. I'm proud of you. Asterisk, they drove home through streets that suddenly seemed brighter despite the late hour. Marcus felt something shift inside him, a loosening of the grief that had held him captive for so long. He would always miss Sarah. That pain wouldn't disappear. But maybe, just maybe, he could honor her memory by living the way she had lived, with an open heart and hands ready to help. Asterisk, Christmas morning arrived with weak winter sunlight filtering through the windows of their apartment. Emma woke early, as children do on Christmas, and together they opened presents and drank hot chocolate and watched the snow continue to fall. But Marcus found himself distracted, wondering about Jasmine and her brother and their mother, wondering if their Christmas morning had been filled with surprise and joy, or if somehow the gifts had been missed or misunderstood. Asterisk, he got his answer 3 days later when he was working a shift at the hospital. He was updating a patient's chart when someone tapped him on the shoulder. He turned to find a woman in her early 30s, with tired eyes and Jasmine's same dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore scrubs and a name tag that read Patricia, custodial staff. Asterisk, excuse me, she said, her voice trembling. Are you Marcus Thompson? Asterisk, his heart began to pound. Yes. Can I help you? Asterisk, Patricia's eyes filled with tears. You already did. Jasmine told me about the man and the little girl who gave her a ride home on Christmas Eve. She described you and your daughter. And then she mentioned you said you were a nurse at a hospital. I work here, cleaning, and I asked around until I found you. I needed to thank you in person. You don't need to thank me. Marcus started, but Patricia was shaking her head. You don't understand. I've been drowning. My husband left us with nothing. I work 2 jobs, and I still can't keep up. I was going to have to tell my babies that Santa couldn't come this year, that I'd failed them. When Jasmine snuck out, I was so scared. But then Christmas morning came, and there were presents everywhere. Real presents, food, gift cards that are going to keep us fed for months, and a note that said we weren't alone. Asterisk, she was crying openly now, and Marcus felt his own eyes burning. I felt so alone. Like I was invisible. Like no one cared if we made it or not. But you saw us. You saw my daughter digging through trash to make fake presents. And instead of judging us, you helped us. You gave us hope. Asterisk, your daughter was making those presents for you, Marcus said, his voice thick. She was trying to protect you from pain. That's love. Real love. You're raising incredible kids. Patricia, you're doing an amazing job under impossible circumstances. Asterisk Patricia wiped her eyes. Jasmine wants to meet Emma again. She asks about her every day. And my son, Marcus, he thinks Santa is magic because how else would Santa have known exactly what he wanted? You gave me my children's faith back. You gave me my faith back. Asterisk in that moment, standing in the bustling hospital corridor, with people rushing past them caught up in their own dramas and crises, Marcus understood something profound. He'd spent 2 years believing he had nothing left to give, that grief had hollowed him out and left him empty. But that wasn't true. He had so much to give. He had the capacity to see someone else's pain. He had the resources to help. He had a daughter who understood compassion. He had everything Sarah had tried to teach him about being human. Asterisk, I'd love for Emma to see Jasmine again. Marcus said, in fact, why don't you all come to dinner this Sunday, if you're free? Asterisk Patricia nodded, unable to speak, and then she hugged him. This stranger, who had seen her family's darkest moment, and responded with grace. Asterisk that Sunday, 2 families sat around Marcus's small dining table. Emma and Jasmine played like they'd known each other forever, building elaborate structures out of blocks while little Marcus zoomed his new toy truck around the floor making engine noises. Patricia helped Marcus cook dinner, and they talked about their lives, their losses, their hopes for the future. Asterisk as Marcus watched everyone laughing and talking. He felt Sarah's presence so strongly it was almost physical. She wasn't there in body, but she was there in spirit. In the love that filled the room, in the connection between people who had chosen to see each other's humanity. Asterisk over the following months, the 2 families became inseparable. Marcus helped Patricia apply for better paying positions at the hospital. Emma tutored Jasmine in math. They celebrated birthdays and regular dinners and eventually moved into a larger apartment that they shared, reducing expenses and increasing support. They became each other's safety net. Proof that family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes it means people who show up when you need them most. Asterisk on the first anniversary of that Christmas Eve encounter, Marcus and Emma went back to the alley where they'd first seen Jasmine. It looked different now, less menacing in the daylight. Marcus had brought flowers, which he placed carefully near the dumpster.